firstly, Jennifer, I was intrigued by how Gráinne Mhaol came to you in Adelaide. So what's the kind of, going back, what's the inspiration for the book?
Well, there's probably many answers to that, but I guess I'd say everyone in Ireland growing up has heard stories about Gráinne Mhaol, and they were always legends, the stories of her hacking off her hair so she could get onto her father's boat, and the extra place always laid at the table in Howth Castle because she was not allowed in there one time and she ended up kidnapping Lord Howth's grandson, and then the bargain was that always lay a place for a stranger at the table, according to Brehon law. So all those stories, I grew up with, and we also had a family sort of story that we were told. Our great-grandfather, John Coyne, apparently married into the O'Malley family, but I think everybody lays claim to some relationship with the O'Malley clan. And I suppose being in Australia, being so far away, my thoughts are always of home, and my intention was always to come back home, and I always came home regularly. So it kind of came about organically that I didn't start with Gráinne. I actually was starting from a point of being really interested in constraints in poetry and how you could have a process around writing poetry rather than waiting to be inspired organically to write one. And that led me to look at how themed poetry with constraints could work, and could they still be emotional and still be something readable but be also process-based. And looking for a theme, I thought of Gráinne, I thought of Maeve, and the older legendary women, of course, I was drawn to. But all the rest fell away when I kind of delved in a bit more to Gráinne. So that's sort of where we started.
those Atlantic winds and stories, and I think probably everybody remembers that. I certainly grew up with the story of the place at the table. If somebody was due to come and didn't come or something, it organically arrives. So you wrote the bulk of Grace Notes as part of a PhD in creative writing at Adelaide. So yeah, and you did mention there about constraints, but tell us a little bit about the structure of the book, because it's a super book. It's really meaty. There's lots of different things to delve into. So tell us a wee bit about the structure.
Okay, thank you. So rather than just going down the track of a straight kind of set of narrative poems about points in Gráinne's life, I wanted to give her more power and actually more voice, because voice ended up being the kind of thing of interest that came about through the rescue poems. New voices were coming out that I didn't know where they were coming from. There was Gráinne's voice herself, and I thought she has been written out of history, out of the history books. She has been disappeared, and it's quite an irony that we only know so much about her through the papers, the Calendar of State papers that are in the English records. The Irish stories are all stories about her, but the English have the facts. And Anne Chambers wrote a fantastic biography of Gráinne Mhaol in, I think it was in 1970, I forget the year now, but a very definitive, heavily researched biography, and it made for really interesting reading, and that was my jumping off point. But I wanted to give her more voice. I thought, what can I do? What else can I do? And I thought about all the voiceless in the past, of her past, and all the voiceless that were still to come. And I decided to have her at the end of her life, as she's fading from this life, that she takes a trip through time. And I put her back in medieval times, and I brought her forward in her future to the 1900s, so to two key points, one where James Joyce is writing Ulysses, and one in the 1916 Rising. So it sort of, I felt like it gave her even more voice through history and represented all those who hadn't voices before.
And certainly I felt when reading it that you really kind of fall into the history of her, and you kind of, whereas I know she's this figure who's a pirate queen and we all have glimpses of her, but there are kind of like just little vignettes. But reading the poems it somehow came alive. And I thought maybe would you read the Tibbet poem, because this is, I think this brings out about her life, that she had a family as well as being on the sea and all the rest of it. That would be maybe.
Yes, Tibbet was her eldest son, her youngest son, I beg your pardon. And the bare bones of the story is that she was out to sea and she gave birth to her son, and they were the ship was boarded by pirates. They fought them off and they won, and that's about as much of the story as we have. So I decided to do a lot of thinking about that, and I guess we'll get to how I get into her character. I don't know anything about her. I don't know how she might have felt or how she would have felt in any time. So my challenge was to interrogate her across time and asking questions of her. So this is one of the answers, if you like, I came up with. Birth of Tibbet, 1567 AD. We're ploughing the sea off the coast of Cork. Winds are blowing fresh and southerly. There are some things I cannot control. I'm brought to bed in the bowel of my galley. I push, I pant, I bite my tongue, dig my nails into the bunkwood. I push and push and push and push. My eager son is born at last, all bloodied and bawling. What a grim chamber to welcome my slippy slothering infant. Through a haze of scorch-wrenching pain, I hear an uproar from the deck. Then Pather bursts through the door, shouting, "Help! We need you! Pirates are boarding!" May you be 7 times worse this day, 12 months who can't do without me for one day, I yell, dragging myself from the delivery bed, lifeblood and body fluids gushing. And I feel the weight of the last 9 months drop from between my legs. I swaddle my son in a linen broth, ensure he's secure. Snatch a blanket, fasten it around my neck with a string, the very way I'll hang those cursed corsairs. I grab a brace of blunderbusses, crawl up the companionway, position myself amidships. Wind still blowing fresh and southerly. Amidst the commotion, the smell of the sea is a potion for me. I start to dance like a wild woman of the West, capering, cavorting like a Connemara crone, weaving like a Walty witch. I tip my head to the low sky and I roar like a banshee slighted. Interrupt the deadly mayhem. Look at me, you devil's knackers! I scream and twist and twirl my monstrous body round and round and round, arms outstretched, blunderbusses clenched like devil angel wings. Sweat-drenched hair plastering my head, my eyes, my ears, my cheeks. Afterbirth spluttering, blanket whipping in the wind. I spin and turn and swirl and spin. The barbarians gawp at me, shuffle together, poke each other, sniggering and muttering in their trollopy Turkish tongue. I spin and turn and swirl and spin. Look at me, you yeasty sea dogs, you're not so magnificent now. They ghastly gawk, stupefied at my whirling dervishness. I spin and turn and swirl and spin. Suddenly, I stop and face them. Wind still blowing fresh and southerly. I lower my arms, rest an elbow on each hip, weapon ready. How red my temper that flashes and flares. Aim, take aim. Their time has come. Take this from unconsecrated hands. To a man, they realise they are gazing down the barrel of their own terrible demise. How brown the sound of a galley's oars. Mouths open wide, horrified as lead balls scatter brigand flesh, smash and splinter alien bones. How white the sound of men's cracked skulls. Death moans sing my dizzy dreams, bloody rivers gush, the decks awash with slithery foreign guts, my vision flashes bleeding stars. My men shout and whoop and strut, victorious, triumphant. I stagger back to bed, to sleep. Welcome to your birthright, Tibbet, I whisper as I float a dream. I'd swear I saw my newborn smile. My men arrest the enemy ship, capture the surplus bewhapped Ottomans. We hang them all, the plunderous swine, at the castle at Carrigahowie. So it's a bit blood and guts and gory, isn't it?
Gosh, there's such physicality in that. It's just like, I mean, how did you actually, what was the process of getting into her voice or discover, because it feels really real, really visceral, and, we're kind of pulled back in it somehow, but what was there a process that you used to get there?
Well, I guess it was, I kind of mentioned a bit earlier, I've never fought pirates on a ship. I haven't given birth to a child. There was a lot of imagining, but I found that the best way for me to inhabit her character, or at least find a way into her character, was to interrogate her, ask her. I asked her lots of questions, and I wrote pages and pages of questions. 30, 40, 50 questions. This is for each poem, because I needed to do the research to make sure I was comfortable with what I was going to produce, because I couldn't know it, instinctively. I could guess, but I wanted to be more certain, and somehow this helped me. With asking the questions, it helped me find out maybe the things I needed to find out. It also helped me to imagine what it might have been like, because I'd answer myself. Well, she answered me, didn't she? So yes, I found that was my process mainly. A lot of reading and research, to back that up. And there are some poems where, as I say, we've little or nothing, no information. So that was imagination and what might have been, but very much backed up with the history of either the surroundings and or the clothing and or the yarns that we heard.
And that's certainly, I found that very much in the story that probably everybody knows really about Gráinne Mhaol, where she meets Elizabeth I, and that's a fabulous poem, a very in-depth poem about the very sort of texture and scent of the court and all the rest of it. But then you also go in, you kind of dive off that historical thing like into her voice, and out of that come the kind of dreamy poems where she's kind of going forward in time or back in time and then meeting other women. So that was a really interesting idea as well. Do you want to read one of those, maybe the Molly? Was it the Molly one?
Yeah. And so, as I said, I at the point of her life where she was on her deathbed, I imagined this dream set of Ashling's dream sequence, bringing her back into medieval times and then bringing her forward. And James Joyce, when he in Finnegan's Wake, there are quite a few references to Gráinne Mhaol, Prank Queen, Gráinne Mhaol. He calls her all sorts of things, and he references the Lord Hoath incident when she kidnapped the grandson. And so I thought, you know what, let's bring Gráinne to James Joyce and let her haunt him, and maybe that's where he got it. Maybe that's where he had his ideas.
So what's happening now actually happened then, and it's a kind of a time
slip.
It is
a bit of a time slip, it is. So this is Molly Unleashed, 1921 AD. I rise above my feather bed and find I'm in a future, not my time or country, an icy wind skeeting across from the mountains. A thin fellow countryman is straining over his new seal to an ancient story. He scribbles and mutters in the Sassenach tongue. The smoothest place is right there, Did he ever do a thing like that before? I croon through vapours. He inclines his head, listening for voices, living, dying, or dead. His heart going like mad, and yes, I say, yes, I will, yes. I'm a juicy pear, where his breath makes me water, and yet not a particle of love in our natures. So I hum through thickening air and sing for Nora. I sing my Margarets, my mother, my daughter. I sing of Maeve and Bridget and the remembered, the forgotten, the nameless. I mourn the disappeared. I weep for the defeated, the broken, the silenced. And I wail for their names to be inscribed in the heavens, and I will him to sign their names in the heavens. There, where that eye, the sky, is watching, is just about to blink its ageless lid, and the sky will brace itself and go quiet, and the sun will be turning still and chill and fading and waiting to see if the eye will complete the blink and then reopen like long ago. And when last it opened, it saw the first sun into being. It saw the first sky into being. And I know, as I'm here now, how eternity has passed. In the blink of an eye, the one that's witnessed the wives of the world, the bones of the lifeless. And now he's hearing the voice of the prank queen, and words shoot out from pistol pen. Yes, because he never did a thing like that before. Yes, because he never did a thing like that before. His face is now receding. I return from sleepful visions to graceful, dream-free sleep.
I love the idea of the cyclical thing that she's influencing him. And the other thing, of course, is that I really want to mention as well is the whole idea of the rescued poem, which you have found yourself as a form, and it's different from a found poem. Can you just open that out a wee bit and talk about how is a rescued poem different from a found poem, and how have you worked in it in the book? How has it emerged in the book?
Okay, how long do you have?
Well,
no, I'm only joking. No, I'm only joking. So the rescued poetry, I guess to backtrack, I started doing a master's in creative writing at the University of Adelaide, and it was there that I was playing around with form and structure and process-based poetry. I come from an engineering background. I'm an electronic engineer, so I love me some manufacturing, and I love process, and I love structure. And interestingly enough, we know the poetry comes from poesis, which is making. So a poem is making. And I was really interested in the process-based poetry, from everything from, it's been going on for so long, the Oulipo movement that started in France, and other process-based procedural poetry movements. And there was all the collage poetry, which included found poetry, where you would just take an article from a paper maybe and black out lots of words and leave some words that would create a poem. But that sounded to me a bit random, and it also allowed you to see where it came from, so it still retained its context. And I thought, no, I want to get away from that. So what resulted was this notion of rescued poem, where I would take 2 pages of text from 2 different books, or maybe from the same book, but mostly from 2 different books. I would transcribe both pages. Then I would jumble the words so they became completely disconnected from their source. And out of that bucket of words, I would write a poem. And that's where the kind of creative component of the whole process came into being, because the other was very structured and procedural based. And I guess it actually put me in a sort of a zone of making a poem. It kind of got me into a state of trance almost. Trance sounds a bit woo, but it kind of got my mind nice and settled and calm while I was transcribing and jumbling and doing all that kind of stuff. And then I would write these rescue poems, and what was evident from the start was, well, first of all, they had very little or nothing to do with the source text, because I had no memory of where they'd come from. and they kind of took on a life of their own. And the more I did them, the more I got used to just looking for a word and hanging ideas off of it. You know, that was where the creative component came into it. And I was, probably 80% of the time I was really, really surprised at what emerged. And so when it came to the PhD, I thought, well, I want to explore that. Then I, as I've said earlier, went with the idea of Gráinne and her life. And then I thought, how will I work the rescue poetry into that? So I decided that the rescue poems in the collection would be all taken from source texts that were about Gráinne. So in the back of the book, there's a spreadsheet, because we like our spreadsheets, and it gives for each rescue poem in the book, it gives the 2 original source texts of it, and the page numbers from which they
page
came.
numbers as well.
Oh, I think they do.
Right.
Yeah, I hope they do.
Yeah,
Page numbers should be there.
Okay.
So that's sorry for the long answer, but
interesting.
I really felt that there are some more than others of these rescue poems that really echo the moments that I've composed about Gráinne in her voice, and some of them sound like they're very, very different. And what's that about? But they are connected because they had their base, their source in stories about her.
Okay, and can I ask you, did you take then that process as a whole? So once that you had done the poem in her voice, did you then immediately go to the texts? Or did it just happen at different times?
Different times. And I was happier to do it at different times because I didn't want necessarily conscious echoes.
Of course, yeah.
So.
And it's interesting that you did a physical thing, that you physically wrote them out, you physically cut up the words, and then you...
Well, I didn't actually. I did it electronically. But
did you?
I did, yeah. I didn't cut them out. I'd be still on page 45 if I was cutting them out.
No, I noticed that.
No, I did it electronically, but it was still a procedure, and it's still
yeah.
sort of, I was doing it very automatically because I got used to how I was doing it.
So I'd just be interested about that.
Yeah.
No,
I might try it sometime. I don't know.
Do you want to? Are you going to give us one of those?
Yes,
The poem is written, maybe, or
yes. I'm quite fond of this one. You're not supposed to be too fond of your own work, but I have a soft spot for this one. A poem is a river, and actually I should draw attention to the fact that the rescue poems, all the titles in the book are in italics for the rescue poems, so that differentiates them from the regular Gráinne voice poems. A poem is a river. How it hears us, feet on stone. How it gives skin colour. How it curls the lonely moon through nighttime byways and the faithful sun through morning blue. How it has us waiting and following, delaying and crossing, and leaves us clutching our hands exposed and desolate. How it says, see, there is beauty in the old and wrinkled face. See, there is beauty in the cold and bare face. How it says, see, silver wolves wake ancient lives in us. A poem is a river, drowned in time, first leaving us sliding and falling, then flying.
Yes. I love that poem myself. And just with that other idea of constraint, I know you were saying to me that you like form and there are villanelles, but you've also done another thing which you have put some poems, say, after Hardy, after Heaney, and actually, we were just talking about this before, I actually thought there was one which was sort of after Allingham, but it wasn't consciously, and it's called, if you've got the book, it's called That Noteless Night. I'll leave you to discover that one. But a lovely one as well, which everybody here probably everybody will know, is the Mhuireann. Would you like to read that one, or we'll let people discover it themselves, what they feel it is?
Okay. Will I say anything about it before?
I'll just read it.
Okay. Mhuireann 823 AD, after Pangerbón. Mhuireann, eagle mate and I feathers, skin and seam nearby. We scavenge on seas we know, she above and I below. Pirate Queen O'Malley, me, my seaward home a galley. Wirran soars by cliffs and coast, queen of Atlantic outpost. We read weather, currents, tides, each of us reflects, decides. Both of us are watchful, wise, ready to shock and surprise. Wirran, gliding silent, keen, calculates a shoal's routine. I patrol my hunting ground, look for rich ships to impound. Yellow talons, thick-horned beak serve her drop and dip technique. Stealthy vessels, loyal crew spur my courage to pursue. As she strikes, she'll not look back, intent on fruitful attack. My resolve is just as bold, claim foreign fortunes untold. I am water, she is air. Enemies of us, beware. What's there is hers, what's theirs, mine. Our castes and metals align. Wirran with her wedge-shaped tail, lightning speed and power prevail. I too, seizing every chance of spoils on ocean's expanse.
Thank you. So I think probably everybody will realise by now that this is quite a rich text and really rich resource. So it appeals to the engineers out there, certainly the historians, but certainly that development of that poetic voice and the imagination and the power of it, physicality of it as well. And for me it brought Gráinne Mhaol to be a real person, her loves, her lusts, her losses with all the power. She stopped being that stereotypical pirate. Finally, I suppose, Jennifer, I know that you're a musician, and that you had a wonderful sold-out solo show in Adelaide, which was called Grace O'Malley, Irish Rebel, Pirate Queen. So maybe I thought perhaps, I know you might do a poem as well, just to finish up. Unless is there something else that you wanted to say about the book, or is there anything else that maybe...
No, I think we've had a great conversation. Just to say that it's available from Salmon Poetry website, and I'll be signing copies downstairs. But I would love to just say a few words before, and
well,
then maybe
you might. Would you have the song? And do you want us to do the song and then have a last roundup yourself? Is that okay?
Sure.
Or is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe just a glimpse of something from your show, as well as maybe a final poem, if that's okay. And I'm going to leave the stage to you now. Okay. So bye.
Thank you, Win, very much.
I'm
going to be brutal with this, as I was told. So after Gráinne's first husband died, she was reputed to have many, many lovers, and one of whom was this gentleman, Hugh de Lacy, 1565 AD. I find you off Achill Island Head. Your ship's in pieces, all your mates are gone, dispersed by ocean currents. You're not from around here. You don't have the look of a Mayo man. Your pallid skin is waterlogged and gashed. Your fine clothes are torn. I think you're dead, but when I stub you with my boot, you twitch and moan a bit. I salvage what I can from the wreckage on the rocks, bring it and you to Clare Island. I feed you broth of bone. You call out, restless in your dreams. Your face is pleasing. Your gold hair glimmers in the candlelight. Your legs are strong. Your body's long and limber. You're a feast to my starved eyes. I don't want you mending too soon. I watch the blood return to your pale cheeks. Now and then I lean into your neck. You smell of salt, of herbs. Good God, of what filter have I drunk? I really want to taste you. One morning, I'm dozing by your bedside. When I wake, I find you staring at me with such eyes of blue. I've never seen the like. My name is Hugh, you say. That voice, as deep as 20 fathoms in a gentle swell. I'm sorry to be meeting you in this situation. You take my hand in yours, hold it firm. But I'm very pleased we've met. Oh, there's no doubt we'll go far. You convalesce, your strength returns. We talk, share family stories. We're moving closer, circling. I'm like a giddy girl. And you too are love-struck, tender, tempting. Why would I resist? No reason. You brush a strand of hair back from my face. You press your lips to mine with this embrace. We disappear without a trace behind us. Differences that bind us are released. These castle walls may not be strong enough nor withstand long enough our tides of lust. Our bodies ride the rhythm of wild seas, and the musk of you propels me high and wide. And not one chieftain, not one seaman ever measured to your tallow hue de Lacy, and you bellow, as do I, and all our kingdoms rise, and then they come. Oh, how they come. You turn the heating down a bit. And I think before I do the lament, I'd like to make some thank yous here. I've been quite overwhelmed with a deep sense of gratitude for all the incredible support I've received for this book. And firstly, I want to thank Win McNulty, who has just absolutely been fantastic, done a wonderful, wonderful job of this conversation we had, which was dynamic and real and unrehearsed. So that tells you a lot about that lady. So thank you so much for launching it and for spending the time and all the reading you did. Thank you so much, Win. And to the organisers of the Allingham Festival, I want to say a deep thank you for the opportunity to be here and launch this book. And in particular, I want to thank Tony Liston and Marie Liston for making this event possible. And your dedication, hard work made this space happen and made this possible. So I'm really, really grateful for you facilitating this. Thank you. And I feel very privileged that this book is launched on the 200th anniversary of William Allingham's birth. He was such an amazing storyteller himself in his ballads, and I'm just even honoured that Win mentioned Allingham in relation to any of my work. So I feel very, very grateful indeed. And it brings back the memories of when I was here 10 years ago at this festival. And it's gone from strength to strength. It's brilliant. And thank you all of you for coming here this evening to share my launch. Really appreciate it. And for buying the books. And I'll be signing more down below for anybody who wants to buy presents. Christmas is coming. And I just want to thank the Salmon Poetry for publishing the book. Very grateful for publishing it in such a beautiful form. Their belief in the poems, brought them to life too. And Anne Chambers, of course, who was the inspiration for, the source of a lot of the information of the poems in there. And I want to thank people in particular, a couple of people in Adelaide. There's Trish Malbon and Nat Charlesworth. And Trish Malbon lives in Adelaide, but her brother Jim is here today representing
Australia and Oma. So thank you, Jim, for coming and travelling all the way. Really appreciate it. And to Gráinne Mhaol, coming up all the way from Galway, best friend, best storyteller I know. And to my family, I'm just eternally grateful. My brother James flew in from England and I was completely not expecting that, so thank you so much, James, for causing me a surprise shock in the foyer there. I guess it was probably my turn. You've had a few surprises yourself. And my darling sister Susan, who's been a constant source of encouragement and love and conversations and prodding, and why don't you do that now? And she ought to be CEO of her own empire. Well, she actually is. And to beautiful Dara, thank you so, so much. And Tony, storyteller supreme, fabulous, fabulous brother, and Marie. And then there's all the talented nephews and nieces. Oh my goodness, can't even mention them all. Thank you so much for coming here. All being here is amazing. And then there's the man here, Robert. My heart, my love, my encouragement, my person who believes in me and believes in the work and allows me to shine. Thank you. Thank you. It's winter time, although the sun is shining. Lover, you are never coming home. You lie as cold upon a stone. The knife of steel plunged in your breast, still blinding me. 'Twas little time we had, you were beguiling. Our coming to a gift like none before. You warmed my body, melted every bone. The skies and sea were kind to me for finding you. Crimson was your blood that flowed so freely. Crimson as your lips that kiss no more. My empty bed and crumpled heart say, go. My men and ships await, the ocean's calling me. My men and ships await, the ocean's calling me.
Thank you.